This conference will now be recorded.
Afternoon. It's Tuesday, February 15th, 2022. This is the regular February meeting of the Davenport Public Library Board of Trustees. We're in the small conference room of the library lane. My name is Steve Bennett, Board of Trustees. I'd like to call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda is roll call and introduction of attendees. I'll call for the roll. Malavika,
Yes, Steve.
Maggie Motto,
I'm here.
thank you. Amanda Motto,
Yes.
thank you. Judy Lance,
Yes, I'm here.
Joe Heinrichs,
Here.
and Tom Engelman.
Here.
Thank you, Tom. And I, Steve Emming, am here. Okay, Craig Cooper and Sylvia Roba are absent, at least so far. I know Craig is out of town. Anyway, we do have a quorum, so we will proceed with the agenda. Also like to introduce others who are in attendance. Lexi Riley, the interim library director, Jennifer Williams, HR operations manager, Tracy Moore, the development officer, and Casey Shipley, recorder. Okay, moving along. Second item on the agenda is the consent agenda. I'd entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
I still second, Steve.
Thank you, Tom, and thank you, Malavika, for the motion and second. Is there any discussion regarding the consent agenda? Hearing none, call for the vote. Let me see first to interrupt. Someone else just called in. Who might that be? No? Oh, I'm sorry. It just moved around on the screen. Never mind. Okay, call for the vote on the motion to approve the consent agenda. Malavika,
Yes, Steve.
Amanda,
Yes.
thank you. Maggie,
Yes.
thank you. Judy,
Yes.
thank you. Joe,
Yes.
thank you. Tom,
Yes.
thank you. And my own vote is yes, motion carries. Next item on the agenda is public with comment. Seeing and hearing no one. Move on to the next item on the agenda, reports and communications. First item there is the Friends. Do you have anything from the Friends? I guess I just mentioned I was at the meeting. The meeting was very brief, but the treasurer did report that they have submitted their tax return, their 990. That's just an informational return. If anyone's interested in seeing that, let me know. Send you a copy, other than reports from the development office and some other things, that was pretty much, oh, they did nominate and approve, I think it was 2 or 3 new members, 2 for sure, but could have been 3. But anyway, that's briefly what was going on at their meeting last Tuesday. Next item under committee reports is finance. Anything from finance, Tom?
Just that if you look at the budget recap, it's running right at, we're 58% way through the year, and our expenses are 58 or 57%, so right on the mark.
Good. Okay, thank you, Tom. Personnel, anything from there, Amanda?
Yeah, I sent around an email discussing that the personnel committee met with Steve. It was probably 2 weeks or so ago at this point to discuss how we were going to go forth with the process of evaluating Jeff over time. Steve, do you want me to make a recommendation based on what we came up with at this time, or how should we do that?
Um,
I mean, it was yeah, I mean, we sent it around, but
Yeah, I guess if you just want to go through what our recommendation was, I think that'd be fine.
okay. Yep, sure. So we had discussed what it would look like during the first 12 months after Jeff's start date, which is the first step would be the personnel committee and Steve would discuss goals and objectives with Jeff. Those goals and objectives being the items that he set forth himself for achievement. The second would be Jeff to provide a report to the board as a whole at 3 months concerning his progress toward achieving the goals and objectives. A progress report should be provided by Jeff on a quarterly basis thereafter, and we would expect that to be, coinciding with the board meetings. The third is the board to provide an evaluation at 6 months. This will be comprised of board and supervisory staff's responses to the standard surveys, the ones that we normally use for our annual evaluations. And the last is the board to announce to provide an evaluation at 12 months. This would be comprised of board and staff's responses to the standard surveys.
Thank
So
you.
that's our recommendation for how to go forward. I don't know if there's any discussion on that.
Questions, comments?
This sounds great. Thank you.
Yeah, so we'll, I mean, obviously Jeff's going to be pretty busy starting tomorrow, and but we will, find a time to meet with him to discuss the goals and objectives, as Amanda said. And but like I said, he'll be busy, so we'll find a time when, I mean, that's an important item, but it's going to be a lot of other things going on, so we'll find a place to fit in there. Okay. Next item on the agenda is advocacy. Mallory, anything there?
Steve and all of us here and there, just a few things to share. Thank you for allowing me to get a card and write on your behalf to Steve a welcome card that Francis, sorry, Jeff, but you are welcome
Oh,
too.
thank you.
So I kind of wrote that and sent it off at our address, Quad Cities Chambers Experience. Quad City Chambers Experience Quad Cities. I may have this name a little bit incorrect. I have put together a welcome packet for the Collins family, and they were going to mail it at our TPL's main address, so we should get that. I just wanted to share a few things here. The wonderful thing that our Archives Next Door is doing, and I registered for it, and I got my kit at home, and which is Color Our Collections. This is just fabulous. They have this lovely packet, lovely little magazine, a printed, right, a book put together of our collection materials. Here's the flyer. To paint, along with a box of various little fun things that was given. You had to register for it. So that's something great our archive is doing. Another thing that I saw and was really, really impressed, and I'm sure it was shared with all of us, but maybe I did not remember, was a library payment plan flyer, is what I saw at Easton when I was there. And that seems to be something got to do with fines, if I'm correct. If people have to, pay fines, they could start a plan. Sometimes it might get difficult. There might be people who need to pay extra money and it might be difficult. So that was a lovely little brochure that was out there for, our patrons to read and see. I just loved it. Another lovely thing that our library is doing, and me and my family were a part of it, sent a few things to Bill. Those were those hot cocoa packets. We do warm up Wednesdays here, and that's such an excellent idea to have all the community come together, meet up with Quinn and the other services that our library and Quinn provides on Wednesdays, and it's a success. Uh, 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 I am going to go back, not right now, but when the spring starts, a long time back, if we all remember, I had started this conversation, but with the pandemic, it had to stop. It's the registration plates where we could have our stickers and registration plates here at the Department of Transportation, where you can have a registration plate, which could be got to do with public libraries or, using our nonprofit status. We could buy a sticker and the monies that we give comes back to our library. So it is a way of, fundraising kind of. So I'm going to get back into that conversation with the DOT. I'll get more information when spring, summer starts. And lastly, the DDP Welcoming and Inclusive Task Force of the Quad City Chamber of Commerce, which I'm a part of, they have a few small little here and there grants, something that I shared at our DEI meeting. I don't know whether we fit in it, but there were a few grants for signages and things like that. So it was good information for us to know. And we are members of the Quad City Chamber, so we are eligible to apply.
Mhm.
So this is what I all have to share with all of us here and there.
Okay, thank you, Malvika. Just like to back up a little bit, if I may, I wanted to note in the Friends report also that if any of the trustees aren't members of the Friends, you might consider joining. It's a great organization. And the membership fees are minimal, so you might consider that. If not, you can contact Tracy if you're interested in that. Okay, moving along. Next item under committee reports, reports and communications is the director's reports. Lexi.
Just to build on the items that were in the printed report, our winter reading program, we had a lot of participation and over 5,000 books read towards the program. So that seemed like a great success. A lot of good feedback from our patrons, especially with using the Beanstack app. We've got an initial meeting for the community center scheduled for next week. So part of those discussions in figuring out how we'll get community input on that. I included a note about our auto renewal, which I know you're aware went live last month. But I did confirm with the state library that we can't report any auto renewals as part of our regular circulation statistics. So if you do see what looks like a dip in our circulation statistics starting in January, that is why. I did run the numbers before having to take those out, and we were on track to be continually improving, and unfortunately this took a bit of a dent out of that. So an update to one of the items on here, I had noted that we would soon be submitting our application for accreditation, but that has been submitted now. So once that goes through, then we will have our accreditation in place for another 3 years. And then I also did put a note in here about Warm Up Wednesday and the great participation we've had. Thank you for talking it up, Malavika. It's been a lovely program. They've served cocoa and coffee to about 100 patrons, and we're going to continue it at least through February. Oh, there was one other item I didn't have in there that I thought I'd add just for informational purposes. There was a bill introduced by the Iowa House a week or two ago. It's House File 2176. With any bills that are introduced this time, I think a large percentage of them don't move forward, but I thought I'd share just in case, because it is in relation to school libraries and public libraries having items in the collection and disseminating them to minors, materials that could be construed as being obscene. And this bill would have criminal penalties for the library staff who are checking those items out or distributing those items to the minors. So a misdemeanor for the first offense and a felony for any further offenses. So just something to keep an eye on.
Thank you for that.
Nice to know the Nazis in Des Moines are still doing that.
Okay, let's see. Next item on the agenda. Well, first I get any questions on the director's reports? Okay, moving on. Next item is the council liaison. Don't see Marion on there, so we'll move on from there. Moving on then in the agenda, the next item is new business. First item there is discussion and approval of updates to Library Administrative Policy 4.5, holidays. That's over here. Okay. Just let me preface this by saying that I try my best to have discussion on one agenda and approval on a subsequent agenda, just to give people time to consider the discussion in that. In this case, this is a new item, and put them on there together for discussion and approval. today because this has to do with including Juneteenth as a holiday for library employees. And the reason, again, for putting it on for discussion and approval is that the city has already updated their policy and approved that. And this holiday will occur before our next meeting. So I thought it was best to do what we can to approve it today so that, you know, technically then the library employees can actually have it off for the first one. So anyway,
Juneteenth.
It's actually not until June, so it
Yes.
won't be before the next meeting.
pardon me?
It won't be held before the next meeting, but the bargaining units, I believe, will be.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're right. You're right. It's March.
Juneteenth
Okay.
happens in June.
Yes, it does. Sorry. I was thinking March, May.
No.
March Madness. That was it. Okay. Thank you very much. Now that I have my calendar straightened out, well, let's go ahead anyway. So I guess to open this item up, entertain a motion to approve updates to the library administrative policy 4.5 for holidays.
So, I'll second.
Okay, thank you, Malavika and Tom. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion regarding this item beyond the fact that our calendar's all messed up?
No.
Does it matter if we approve it today and on it says issued by Jeff, but Jeff's start date hasn't started yet today?
I'm sorry, would you read that, please, Amanda?
Oh, I just said, does it matter that on there it says issued by Jeff as the library director, but we're approving it today and his start date's not till tomorrow? Does that matter at all?
I was gonna ask Jennifer about that myself.
Yeah, that part does not matter.
Okay. Because I guess once it's approved, it has to be signed by, I guess,
Correct.
at least Jennifer, Jeff, and myself. So we will, we'll just change that and make that Lexi at this time then. Would that be okay, Jennifer?
Yes, that's fine.
Okay. Okay. Any other discussion?
The only other item on there, besides just adding that holiday to the list, is on the back
Yes.
side. We did also include language that is from the city's administrative policy on holidays, just to note what the process will be moving forward if there is another holiday that's recognized by the federal government and the Iowa government.
Yes, and this was also added to the city's policy, so that would, you know, recognize that also for other city employees. Is there any comment, discussion, or questions about that particular piece? Thank you, Lexi, for bringing that in. Okay, hearing and seeing none, I'll call for the vote on the motion to approve updates to the library administrative policy 4.5 holidays. Okay. Amanda?
Yes.
Thank you. Maggie?
Yes.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes.
Thank you. Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. Malavika?
Yes.
Thank you. And my own vote is yes. The motion carries. Okay. Next item under new business is discussion and approval of an amendment to Bylaws Article 7, terms of board members. And again, with this one, we had some discussion on this at the last meeting. Also, it seems to me that, you know, we have to do something with this since the language that's in there currently seems to be not conclusive as to exactly what what a term is as far as as it applies to the term limits, that being a partial term or a full 6-year term. So I guess for this item, I would say that we could either decide it one way or the other, or if there's any, you know, any feeling that we should, discuss this further, that we could also have a motion to table it. So with those thoughts in mind, I would entertain a motion to approve an amendment to the bylaws, Article 7, terms of board members.
Steve, if I could, looks like there's two different
Yes,
potential
yes, there are,
ways to approach this.
yeah, there are two different, the items I sent out, as I explained in the email, there's two alternatives. One is um, to have it so that board members would serve a maximum of 2 consecutive 6-year terms, or in the alternative, they could serve 2 consecutive terms, regardless of whether they were shortened terms where the first term was to fill a vacancy, and the second term, which was to, they were reappointed for a second term. So that's what those two items are. So I guess, is there a motion a motion of some kind, either to approve the updates or to table the matter?
Well, I guess I would make a motion to approve the version that states a board member who has been appointed to complete a vacated term is eligible to serve 2 consecutive 6-year terms upon completion of a vacated term.
Okay. Is there a second?
I do, I have a second, but, and then we can discuss. I can ask a question later, right?
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to approve an update. Would you repeat that, please?
Okay. A board member who has been appointed to complete a vacated term is eligible to serve 2 consecutive 6-year terms upon completion of the vacated term.
Okay. Okay, is there a second? Oh, you second that?
Yes.
So we have a motion and a second. And is there any discussion?
Steve, I just have one question, and it's just for information purposes. Now, if we go with this, that we have gone with the 2 consecutive 6-year terms. If a certain, it's a hypothetical question, if a trustee has got the extension of the second term extension, and they want to resign within the term, that's okay, right? I mean, that's not an issue. One can submit a resignation
Oh, sure.
if they want
At any point.
for some reason, it
Yes.
can be. Okay.
Yeah.
So it's not incumbent that they have to finish or anything of that sort.
No, you can resign.
Of course, yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyone except you.
I'm sorry?
Anyone except you.
Anyone except you. Yeah, so, the 2 examples that I gave were that the motion that's been made could potentially allow a person to serve, just short of 18 years. If the mayor appointed someone and the council approved them, and then, they moved out of town or died or whatever, and were unable to complete that term a couple of days after they were appointed and approved, then that vacated term could be filled by someone, which would be almost 6 years, and then could serve 2 more years. So that's kind of the, 2 more terms, I'm sorry.
Term.
And so that's like the maximum we could have in that instance. In the alternative, if we did it the other way, a person could fill a term, say a month of a second term, and then be reappointed to a 6-year term and end up serving just a bit over 6 years. So they would be limited to less than 2 full terms. So just to be sure everyone, hopefully that will explain it well enough that everyone will know what we're doing here. Okay, is there any further discussion?
Steve, if the second term is come up for renewal, let us say, of the individual, do they have to apply or, I mean, what would be the process? Like
Yeah,
if they wish to continue?
for every term, you have to be reappointed.
Right.
So if you filled the vacated term, when that expired, you would have to reapply and be appointed by the mayor and approved by the council. And then if you were appointed when that term expired for your second 6-year term, you would again have to apply, be reappointed by the mayor and approved by the council. So yes.
So the application should be going in through the city's website. City has that section within the website that says committees, councils, etc.
Yes.
So the application has to go through that. And should it be initiated by the trustee themselves?
Yes.
Or before the end of the term?
Yes.
By referring it to the board, right? That I will be, I mean.
There's 2 things here. If because right now there are 3 people whose terms expire in June, and that's Malavika, Tom, and Maggie. So if you wish to be reappointed, you need to go and get that form on the city website and complete that and submit it. And then the mayor would also like to know directly, yes, if you're interested in being reappointed. So you should send him an email or give him a phone call or something and just tell him you'd like to be reappointed. Then also, I guess, I would like to know, because if you're not interested in being reappointed, then we need to, look for some folks that we'd like to recommend to the mayor for appointment. And just, give us some time to find some good candidates. Okay. Is there any other questions, comments, discussion? Okay. If not, I'll call for a vote on the motion. Maggie?
Yes.
Thank you. Judy?
Yes.
Joe?
Yes.
Thank you. Tom?
Yes.
Thank you. Malavika?
Yes.
Thank you. And Amanda?
Yes.
And my own vote is yes. Motion carries. Next item on the agenda is discussion of the tobacco and smokeless tobacco policy. Any comments on that one, Lexi?
This was just one of our policies that hasn't been reviewed in the last 3 years, so thought we'd bring it up for everyone. The only change to it is changing the title of it to tobacco nicotine-free environment, just to be a little bit more succinct and to have the same title as the city's administrative policy on this topic.
Okay, so, okay, is there any questions, comments on this? Changing the title?
If I could, I just think that obviously I'm glad that the city has been doing this, and obviously we've been, since 2008, we've been having this policy, so I'm glad the library is doing this. I can remember back in the days when, everybody smoked and you would walk into a room and there'd be a haze of cigarette smoke.
You all smelling like a forest fire.
Oh, yeah. It, it's amazing if you happen to, sometimes if you travel into a foreign country, you will find they are not as forward thinking on this as we are. And it's like you step back in time. It's just, oh. So.
Okay. Any other discussion? Okay, we'll put that one on the agenda for approval at the next meeting. Couple of things. Wanted to thank the admin team very much for their extra efforts while we've been between directors, Lexi and Jennifer and Casey, keeping things going for us. Also like to thank you for your bios. We got a note back from Jeff saying he thought that they would be very helpful to him. So appreciate that. Let's see, one other thing I wanted to mention was this Wednesday, the 23rd, no, next Wednesday, the 23rd, there's going to be a trustees training session called the 10 Habits of Highly Effective Library Boards. That's going to be 6 to 7 p.m. and it's going to be a webinar, and would just point that out to you. That would count for us as training, and I may see if I can set up a watch party, but haven't done anything with that yet, so I'll let you know. But anyway, you may have seen that in either the Monday morning eye opener a couple of weeks ago from the State Library of Iowa, or in a item that came this morning or yesterday morning, just about training in general. So anyway, just to make you aware of that one. And I think that's it, unless there's anything else to come before this board.
Steve, I think when the next ILA session takes place, I think we should present on take Quinn along if we can, a social worker in a public library.
Oh, okay.
Because we're the first library in this state to have one.
Okay.
And as it's a 3-year position, we can also showcase how that needs to be extended after. So I think we should be presenting one aspect. And I told Amy she should come along as a guest to be a part of it because you were there who did it.
Yeah, that'd be a good idea. The ILA conference, I think, is October 6th through the 8th.
Yeah.
This year, and Malavika's suggestion of perhaps having a presentation from the Davenport Public Library on the social worker in the library. I think it's a good idea.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. If there's nothing else to be brought before this board, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So,
thank you, Tom. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay.
Joe.
Thank you, Joe. Okay, so just a moment, I'll call for the vote here. Maggie.
I'm sorry, did you call my name? Because you just cut off for a second.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, as a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Yes.
Thank
Sorry.
Yes. Judy.
Yes.
Thank you. Joe.
Yes.
Thank you. Tom.
yes.
Thank you. Malavika.
Yes.
Thank you. Amanda.
A less emphatic yes than Maggie.
And my own vote is yes, the motion carries. Thank you, everyone, for your time. I kind of had anticipated that we'd have more discussion about welcoming Jeff, but and in fact, when we were doing the agenda, Lexi and I talked about having some training in here. In fact, maybe having Quinn, our social worker, come in and tell us about how things are going with her program. But we decided, man, maybe we didn't want to, I didn't want to invite her and then run out of time, so. I didn't want to put her on the spot by calling her in at the last minute, so. Anyway, thank you everyone so much for your time and in support of the library and